A lovely good afternoon. Time now for Midday News. Let's look at the headlines. Chiefs question the authenticity of the reproduced chiefdom boundary map. Security guards to spend 6 years in prison for theft. Charcoal traders adamant about changing their business amid load-shedding profits. The UN wants Central African Republic elections to go ahead despite attacks. Manchester United agree WOUT WEGHORST loan deal. The details after this message.
Hi ladies and gentlemen, I'm Cholwe from Cho's Fitness Gym. We're a fully functional gym located along Twin Palm Road in Kablonga, right by Cheshire Homes Society of Zambia. So we have various classes that happen from Monday to Friday. We have aerobics, we have boot camp, we have step aerobics, we have spinning, we have kettlebell classes. They happen from 18 to 19 hours every day, and we are open from 06 until 20 hours. That's Monday to Friday. Then Saturdays 6 to 12, and then Sundays we are closed. And most public holidays we are open 6 to 12.
Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Louisiana Lupumbwe. Unlicensed charcoal traders at Lusaka's Mtendere market are not unwilling to stop the trade, as it is lucrative and has high demand, especially with the introduction of load shedding. Speaking to Camnet News, the traders have challenged environmental actors against the business to provide alternative business for them, as charcoal trade is helping them fend for their families. More in this report.
Climate change is currently one of the major global problems, as it has spared no country, Zambia included. As a result of this, food security in many countries is under threat, while people have been displaced in some areas after their homes were destroyed by floods. Despite the dire consequences of climate change, illegal charcoal trade has continued to boom in Zambia, and more so with the introduction of 12 hours load shedding. Illegal charcoal traders have always been at loggerheads with authorities, but many advocates in the climate sector have noted lack of aggression in implementers of the law against this vice. Speaking to Camnet News, charcoal traders at Lusaka's Mtendere market say they have been told to leave the area by the local authority, forcing them to sail under Zesco pylons, which is not safe.
Kutokera kudala na kudala paka la kaunda tenzo kulisa malasha panyumba koma unaolendo tidaba kama ti malasha tipisha manyumba wamena za kulisa malasha panyumba pake bampo kataito diti kutokera bani mu 19 chani makolo yatu tibado chakulisa malasha panyumba isa stifu naenda kumaza Teresa ni kungono kumapoko ja ero tiyo pa malaiti abazesiko aketingape na malaiti so tipemba utingana pamene paketisikutsa manyumba.
They have challenged anyone against the trade to provide them with alternatives that will give them high profit, stating that the business is lucrative as there is high demand due to load shedding.
Chidanda ulapangania manasha meni wenzo kamba manasha bafuna kulesa manje bakalesa manasha load shedding iliko bantu bazambo sebenzesa chancha mazambo sebenzesa ndabakufunika balesa chintu nishina bantu bose benzesa baviona na pamene baleka nishi baviona bintu bonse ndabayise manasha omutinamba kudala ndemwe amene naise tisungira bana ndemwe amene tisera bana benangu bantu ni ma single lady benangu ni mawido benangu ni maofani wankali bana bangono bagulisa manasha pumwe musamio zambili maningi tibana baende ku maskulu bana badi bana bate vili bonse benangu bani ma ministers banankala ma ministers muka through malasha makolo bawo benzogulisa malasha ni yakudala na kudala.
The traders have challenged the government to first create reliable alternative sources of energy on which people would depend on apart from charcoal before any of them are discouraged from this trade. Zipora Mshala, Camnet News, Lusaka.
Government, through the Office of the Surveyor General, says it has reproduced adequate copies of the 1958 chiefdom boundary maps, as well as a set of the same maps but with enhanced topographic features for easy interpretation of chiefdom boundaries. Ministry of Local Government Permanent Secretary Administration, Mambo Hamaundu says this in a quest to address the recurring land boundary disputes among traditional leaders, which usually arises from lack of information and difficulties in interpreting the 1958 chiefdom boundaries. The permanent secretary, who was represented by House of Chiefs Clerk Julian Mulenga at a meeting with Royal Highnesses and other stakeholders in Southern Province Thursday, says he is hopeful that the dispute surrounding chiefdom boundaries will be minimized. Meanwhile, some traditional leadership have still questioned the authenticity of the reproduced copies of the 1958 chiefdom boundary map. We have details by Prudence Chota.
Increasing chiefdom boundary disputes has continued to undermine developmental efforts in affected areas and in some cases threaten human life. Some traditional leaders have nearly exchanged punches due to boundary disputes, while others have ended up becoming enemies and exchanged words of cursing. Government, in an effort to bring to an end chiefdom boundary disputes, working with the Surveyor General, has reproduced adequate copies of the 1958 chiefdom boundary map as well as a set of the same map with enhanced photographic features for easy interpretation of chiefdom boundaries. Ministry of Local Government Permanent Secretary Administration Mambo Hamaundu was represented by House of Chief Clerk Julian Mulenga at a meeting with Royal Highnesses and other stakeholders in Southern Province Thursday, urged traditional leaders to take time to understand the reproduced copies of the 1985 chiefdom boundaries.
By the time we finish distributing this chiefdom boundary map, the Royal Highnesses will know where their boundaries start and where their boundaries end, so that these chiefdom boundary disputes will be brought to a bare minimum. And what government has done is to enhance the 1958 chiefdom boundary map by putting topographic features on the map so that the map is easier to read and anybody can understand it.
But some traditional leaders have still opposed the reproduced adequate copy of the 1985 chiefdom boundary map, adding that no government official has ever come on the ground to survey the boundaries.
It was going to be necessary, Mr. Chair. Even the government, the then government, that made the 1958 map could have consulted the villagers, even the chiefs there. There could have been no problems. Now they were seated in the offices. Then they draw some maps. Those maps are tantamount to bring about to civil wars.
What we do not know is who was planting those coordinates which you talked about. Who planted them there? Because whoever did that did it wrongly. And now we are telling you that can you do it correctly? And we cannot go back there without a clear answer from you. We cannot live by that map.
So I don't know, you have said, we understood very well, you said this map supersedes. So what do we do in such circumstances when we cannot liaise with each other as chiefs?
Other traditional leaders have, however, supported the initiative and have asked for more time to study the map.
I'm very, very happy. It was first the president announced in the House that the maps were to be distributed. And the minister made a follow-up, and today the government has actually actualized their words. This is a very, very important document, as it has been delaying progress in some parts of our country.
Now the map is very clear. I think we need to put our heads together now and harmonize to see how we can go ahead. Which is, to me and the people of Congo, from now onwards, I think we'll work as a team.
Prudence Chota, reporting for Camnet TV News.
The Lusaka Magistrate Court has sentenced a former movie television security guard to 6 years imprisonment with hard labor for theft. This was after Kambani Kapila, 42, admitted to having broken into movie TV television studios on the 16th of December 2022 and stole items worth over 110,000 kwacha. Kapila was jointly charged with Kabamba Mwape, 25, Kelvin Kambila, 24, and Shonslas Mwanza, with one count of breaking into a building with intent to commit a felony. However, Mwape, Kambila, and Mwanza pleaded not guilty on trial in the matter commenced on February 8, 2023. Delivering judgment, Magistrate Trevor Kasanda noted, with concern, the growing number of theft further that for a convict to break into a busy TV station, the convict was ready for the consequences of his actions and sentenced him to 6 years. In our international news, the international community believes that the elections must take place in the Central African Republic on December 27, and it condemns the attempt to prevent the country from moving through a new political transition. A top UN official in the country tells reporters in a virtual press briefing. Now, over the weekend, the UN peacekeeping mission in Central African Republic reported a coalition of armed groups carried out simultaneous attacks and attempted to reach the capital, Bangui, as political and security tensions increased ahead of the country's nationwide elections. Meanwhile, the United Nations is calling for urgent funds to address a humanitarian emergency for tens of thousands of Ethiopian refugees. These refugees have fled conflict in Ethiopia's northern Tigray region to neighboring Sudan for safety, as the agency again requests full access to the embattled region. Here's a roundup of international news.
UN has condemned all attempts to prevent the Central African Republic from moving through a new political transition. The international community believes that the elections must hold on December 27, a top UN official in the country reiterated via a virtual press briefing. The international community believes that the elections must take place on December 27 to respect the time frame laid down by the Constitution. It also condemns the attempts by the alliance of armed groups and some political stakeholders to prevent the country from moving through a new political transition. Over the weekend, the UN peacekeeping mission reported that a coalition of armed groups carried out simultaneous attacks and attempted to reach the capital Bangui as political and security tensions increased ahead of the country's nationwide elections. Today, all electoral material for the presidential and legislative elections have been delivered to the regions where the local departments of the national electoral authorities are located. And this was with the assistance of the MINUSCA in order to finalize the last preparations and notably the distribution of voting cards. Rebels on Tuesday seized Bambari, the fourth largest city. The attacks follow the government's accusations at the weekend that former President Francois Bozize was seeking to mount a coup with armed groups ahead of the upcoming elections. A U.S.-Israeli delegation signed agreements with Morocco in Rabat Tuesday, cementing a Washington-sponsored normalization of relations between the Jewish state and the North African country. 4 bilateral deals were signed, centering on direct air links, water management, and a visa waiver arrangement for diplomats. This declaration will be from now on the roadmap for the 3 countries when it comes to the Moroccan Sahara and the Moroccan-Israeli relationship and the establishment of peace and stability in the Middle East in general. Thank you. Tuesday's declaration included a commitment to immediately resume official contacts between Israeli and Moroccan counterparts, with all parties agreeing to fully implement their sides of the bargain before the end of January. In the name of Prime Minister Netanyahu, I would like to express his deep consideration for His Majesty King Mohammed, for his brave leadership and vision for our relationships. The warm relations between the royal palace and the Moroccan people and the Moroccan Jews in particular are known all over the world. There will be a bridge between the 2 countries and also a cornerstone for peace between the 2 peoples. Morocco has North Africa's largest Jewish community of about 3,000 people, and Israel is home to 700,000 Jews of Moroccan origin.
The United Nations is calling for urgent funds to address a humanitarian emergency for tens of thousands of Ethiopian refugees. These refugees have fled conflict in Ethiopia's northern Tigray region to neighboring Sudan for safety, as the agency again requests full access to the embattled region.
Many refugees remain in overcrowded conditions without proper facilities, and there continues to be a shortage of medicine and other supplies. We have seen a huge demand for family tracing and reunification, education, and for child-friendly spaces and nutritional programs.
On Tuesday, the global body appealed for $156 million. So far, only 30% of the funds for the $6 million have been received.
The critical activities include registration, documentation, ensuring the civilian character of asylum, decongesting of the border site areas, transferring refugees to the new settlements, provision of food, health and education services, support for groups with specific needs, particularly for women and girls at risk, unaccompanied minors, the disabled and the elderly.
Over the last 6 weeks, more than 52,000 refugees have fled Tigray to a remote area in neighboring Sudan, the UN said. The figure does not include 96,000 Eritrean refugees already in Tigray before the fighting began. Their fears they're running low on food.
Time now for sports news. Manchester United have agreed a deal to sign Netherlands striker WOUT WEGHORST on loan for the rest of the season. The 30-year-old Burnley forward spent the first half of the season at Besiktas but is now heading to Manchester for a medical before the move can be completed. A deal has been reached for his loan at the Turkish club to be terminated. WEGHORST scored 8 goals and registered 4 assists in 16 league games for best task. On the sporting item, we wrap up the midday news, but here are the headlines before we go. Chiefs question the authenticity of the reproduced chiefdom boundary map. Security guards to spend 6 years in prison for theft. Charcoal traders adamant about changing their business amid load-shedding profits. In international headline, the UN wants Central African Republic elections to go ahead despite attacks. Manchester United agree WOUT WEGHORST loan deal. Thank you so much for watching. It's bye for now.